Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
A coming into being. The act of producing offspring or multiplying by such production. All the people living at the same time or of approximately the same age. A stage of technological development or innovation. The third generation of computers. Group of genetically related organisms constituting a single step in the line of descent. The normal time between successive generations. They had to wait a generation for that prejudice to fade. The production of heat or electricity. Dams were built for the generation of electricity. A coming into being. The first book of the Old Testament tells of creation, Adam and Eve, the fall of man, Cain and Abel, Noah and the flood, God's covenant with Abraham, Abraham and Isaac, Jacob and Esau, Joseph and his brothers. The act of producing offspring or multiplying by such production. An arithmetic operation that is the inverse of division, the product of two numbers as computed. The multiplication of 4 by 3 gives 12. A multiplicative increase. Repeated copying leads to a multiplication of errors. The act of producing offspring or multiplying by such production. The spreading of something, a belief or practice, into new regions. The movement of a wave through a medium. All the people living at the same time or of approximately the same age. All the people living at the same time or of approximately the same age. Serving to begin. The beginning canto of the poem. The time at which something is supposed to begin. The place where something begins, where it springs into being. The Italian beginning of the Renaissance. The act of starting something. He was responsible for the beginning of negotiations. The event consisting of the start of something. The beginning of the war. The first part or section of something. It was a dark and stormy night, is a hackneyed beginning for a story. The sexual activity of conceiving and bearing offspring. Recall that is hypothesized to work by storing the original stimulus input and reproducing it during recall. The act of making copies. Gutenberg's reproduction of holy texts was far more efficient. The sexual activity of conceiving and bearing offspring. Copy that is not the original, something that has been copied. The process of generating offspring. The sexual activity of conceiving and bearing offspring. The result of good upbringing, especially knowledge of correct social behavior. A woman of breeding and refinement. Elegance by virtue of fineness of manner and expression. Helping someone grow up to be an accepted member of the community. Producing offspring or set aside especially for producing offspring. The breeding population. The production of animals or plants by inbreeding or hybridization. The sexual activity of conceiving and bearing offspring. The common people generally. Power to the people. The body of citizens of a state or country. The Spanish people. Fill with people. Stalin wanted to people the empty steppes. Furnish with people. Members of a family line. His people have been farmers for generations. plural, any group of human beings, men or women or children, collectively. Old people. A particular point in the time of a cycle, measured from some arbitrary zero and expressed as an angle. Any distinct time period in a sequence of events. Physical chemistry. A distinct state of matter in a system. Matter that is identical in chemical composition and physical state and separated from other material by the phase boundary. The reaction occurs in the liquid phase of the system. Adjust so as to be in a synchronized condition. He phased the intake with the output of the machine. Arrange in phases or stages. Phase a withdrawal. Astronomy. The particular appearance of a body's state of illumination, especially one of the recurring shapes of the part of Earth's moon that is illuminated by the sun. The full phase of the moon. Plan, organize, and carry out an event. The neighboring tribe staged an invasion. Perform, a play, especially on a stage. We are going to stage Othello. A specific identifiable position in a continuum or series or especially in a process. At what stage are the social sciences? Any distinct time period in a sequence of events. We are in a transitional stage in which many former ideas must be revised or rejected. A small platform on a microscope where the specimen is mounted for examination. A section or portion of a journey or course. Then we embarked on the second stage of our Caribbean cruise. A large coach and four formerly used to carry passengers and mail on regular routes between towns. We went out of town together by stage about 10 or 12 miles. A large platform on which people can stand and can be seen by an audience. He clambered up onto the stage and got the actors to help him into the box. Any scene regarded as a setting for exhibiting or doing something. All the world's a stage. The theater as a profession, usually, the stage. An early movie simply showed a long kiss by two actors of the contemporary stage. A group of plants or animals. An amount of time. Hastened the period of time of his recovery. An amount of time. A time period of 30 years. The monthly discharge of blood from the uterus of non-pregnant women from puberty to menopause. A unit of geological time during which a system of rocks formed. Ganoid fishes swarmed during the earlier geological periods. A punctuation mark, placed at the end of a declarative sentence to indicate a full stop or after abbreviations. In England they call a period a stop. Ice hockey, one of three divisions into which play is divided in hockey games. The end or completion of something. Death put a period to his endeavors. The interval taken to complete one cycle of a regularly repeating phenomenon. An amount of time. A time period of 30 years. An artifact that has been created by someone or some process. They export most of their agricultural production. The quantity of something, as a commodity, that is created, usually within a given period of time. Production was up in the second quarter. A display that is exaggerated or unduly complicated. She tends to make a big production out of nothing. A presentation for the stage or screen or radio or television. Have you seen the new production of Hamlet? Economics, manufacturing or mining or growing something, usually in large quantities, for sale. He introduced more efficient methods of production. Law. The act of exhibiting in a court of law. The appellate court demanded the production of all documents. The act or process of producing something. Shakespeare's production of poetry was enormous. The creation of value or wealth by producing goods and services. The production of living organisms from other living organisms. The production of living organisms from other living organisms. Production of a chemical compound by a living organism. Young adults, a generational unit, considered as a cultural class or subculture. Contemporaries of the same status. The larger than expected generation in United States born shortly after World War II. The larger than expected generation in United States born shortly after World War II. All of the offspring of a given progenitor. We must secure the benefits of freedom for ourselves and our posterity. All future generations. The generation following the baby boom, especially Americans and Canadians born in the 1960s and 1970s. The generation following the baby boom, especially Americans and Canadians born in the 1960s and 1970s.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.